And one of the things I would also say is being on these webinars is like one of the smartest things you can do for your career. I get emails every week from people that have said that learning the stuff they have in these webinars has changed their careers. And I don't think it's because they're sort of exceptional gurus. It's because, I understand this information. Most people don't bother to talk about it. So I believe that it's helpful that people are on this. Okay, this is fun. This person says, I'm glad this is probably a regular on this webinar. So you occasionally mentioned a candidate actually I have who applied to or was rejected from medical school while finding between jobs. This happened to me as well. Is this specific to medicine, or is there something about attorneys that makes it difficult to start a career in any field? Yeah. So with the medical field, typically, if you're going to be serving patients and committed to that, I think I've actually seen this with a couple different attorneys, and I saw the opposite happen. I saw this one attorney was crazy. He was like the dean of the medical school, like a big one. I don't know, it was in Texas or Oklahoma or Mississippi, I don't know, Missouri. I don't remember where it was, but he was like the dean of a medical school, and he went back to law school because he wanted to be a lawyer. I think his wife is a lawyer, and he had an incredibly difficult time in getting positions in the legal field. And I think he actually struck out. He just couldn't stay employed anymore. But people that try to go back for people that go to law school and they want to come back and be doctors, I don't know why, but I've seen this on more than one occasion. I think it doesn't work out because I think that the medical schools want people who want nothing more than to be a doctor. And if they've taken another path in their career, then they're probably not going to be a good fit. So I think it's like that. I had an interesting thing happen. I was in part of this group and we got access. They had to give background checks and everything. We went to the Navy SEALs thing, Navy SEALs training center and so forth. And there's one in San Diego, outside of San Diego. So we went there and had a presentation, and then they gave us a tour around the complex where the Navy SEALs train. But what happens when people join the Navy SEALs is I don't know, they might get 5,000 applications. I'm just making these numbers up, but I'm making the initial ones up, but they might get 5,000 applications, and then they give the 5,000 people a review, and I don't know, then they reject a bunch of them. I don't know how, but then they might get the number down to 800, and they give those 800 psychological tests and different types of tests, and they eliminate, and then maybe they have a training class of 300 people. Now, the 300 people I'm positive about. I don't know these numbers, 5,000 and so forth, like how many of those I'm not really quite sure how that works, but they get down to a number around 300, and then they take them on all these things. Like they have this thing called Hell Week where they start on Sunday night, they're done Thursday night. And after that, the 300 people might be whittled down to 30 or something, or 40 people that make it through that. It might even be lower. And the ones that don't make it, so you have these 300 people out of class, and you have 260 or whatever, 70 that didn't make it. They don't get good jobs in the Navy after them. They do things like scraping paint on ships. And that's the people that don't succeed in one career. I think, especially something like medicine, like that's a huge risk, taking someone who's second choice is to become a doctor. Like it doesn't work. I don't know. But if you were in medical school, you'd want to admit people that that's all they wanted to do. And they always wanted to do that as opposed to someone who doesn't. So I think that's part of it. Their heart's not in it. I've seen in any profession, in my profession, like recruiting, I've seen so many people come into this whose heart wasn't in it. And then they fail. So your heart has to be in whatever you do. And if it's not in law, a lot of people sometimes will go to business school, and sometimes that works out, or they'll become writers, or they'll do all sorts of things. But it can be, if your first choice is not to be a doctor, then you're probably not going to work out. People aren't fit for some careers. People aren't fit for some practice areas. And there's nothing wrong with that. The guy that wanted to become a lawyer because his wife is a lawyer, and that didn't work out for him, that's perfectly understandable. Like, why would it work out for someone to do something different like that if that wasn't their first choice? So if you become a doctor and then you become dean of a medical school and you decide to go to law school, that doesn't make any sense. When you've risen to the highest levels of being why would you do something but you're not a good fit for? So this is very interesting, right? Yeah. So, okay, let's see. And these are great questions, by the way. Thank you for everyone who's asking them. And also thank you for, I know there's 400 people in this webinar, but to listen to this information. That's just, I'm just amazed because I think it's a lot to learn, and to be a student of law firms, if you're going to be working in them or working in them, is the smartest fucking thing you can do. I can't even imagine. I'm very impressed for people that are watching this and listening, because I think that a lot of this information compared to the normal webinars I do is, if it's practice area specific, you may not get as much out of it, but I think the overall global talk that I've gone into can be very helpful. Okay, at smaller firms, the impact of a practice area collapse can be particularly devastating. What advice do you have for boutique firms looking to diversify their services and expand into more resilient practice areas? So a lot of firms, that's a good question. So a lot of firms are boutique firms, meaning they do different types of things, like different types of, for example, you have firms that I've seen firms. I was talking to one the other day whose specialty was white collar litigation. So they would represent, the current firm was founded by like a U.S. attorney or someone, and then he'd hired some people, and then, but then there were slowdown. And so he had this website, he was talking about his website, and he said, what do I do? Because the only way I can get through these bad economic conditions is by doing plaintiffs related work and then settling those cases and or filing lawsuits. And so that's what we do. But how do I put that on my law firm website without turning away clients that are trying to want to be represented by collar litigation? A smaller law firm, that in patent, we see it in a lot of smaller law firms that only do one form of litigation. Some of them only do real estate. Some of them only do corporate related work. And the other problem that is, if you're a boutique, you get a reputation for being a specialist. Your firm deals in a certain practice area. And so that practice area slows down, like your bankruptcy or other types of practices, that can be very difficult. So what do law firms do? They figure out ways to expand their existing client base, meaning bringing more people, clients, by trying to go out further in the market, or they sometimes will go into different practice areas that can be better. So what does that mean? That means like a real estate firm can also start doing real estate litigation or different types of things. But yeah, it can be very bad at smaller firms, and a law firm is on doing one practice area. So my suggestion is always to try to expand the practice area to something else. And so what have I seen law firms do? I've seen like law firms that do like only corporate, and there's not a ton of these, but law firms that do only corporate will start doing, if they specialize some type of corporate, in a big city, they may start doing general corporate, meaning helping the law firm and their clients with bylaws, registrations, minutes, and putting together things for them for that. Law firms, employment litigation, they could go and do the same thing, doing handbooks and just different things like that. So those are things that I've seen law firms do, but it's always important to have different types of clients. So if I was a law firm, I would have large institutional clients, but then I would also always try to make sure that I have a backup of either smaller clients or different aspects of that practice area to do it, and getting different types of work out of their existing clients. So it's a very good point. And one of the things about boutique firms is they are at risk when things slow down. I've seen a lot of them go out of business, and one of the benefits of having a full service firm is that, you're balancing out economic climates and things by based on having people doing different types of practice areas that may be up or down, and then having certain attorneys in the firm bringing in more business while others are bringing in less. It's very helpful to be able to have, these are, by the way, everyone, amazing questions people are asking, very good questions, but thank you. It's very helpful to other people too. Yeah, I've seen firsthand how economic fluctuations can impact the demand for legal services, particularly when in real estate law. How do cyclical practice downturns tie to the concept of practice here is self-destructing? What practices, strategies can attorneys employ to safeguard their careers during these periods of instability? So the couple of things that, what are the ultimate solution? What do you do? So and what would I do? What would Harrison do? What would Harrison do based on what I know? So I would like to start there's not a ton of business. Need to get close to, this is very helpful advice. watching this is very helpful to have learned to attorneys, lots of this. There are certain people out there, people that have to get work. That's just what they do. They generate work. They figure out things to be done. How do they do it? It's something that they learn. It's a skill. And there are people out there that know how to generate work. They just have that skill. It's just what it is. It's like that in every profession, like that with real estate, like that with whatever. But there's certain people that know how to get work. Those are people you need to get close to. There's also outside companies who can always give you work. What do you do? If you're in charting, you get close and you figure out early or as soon as possible the letter. What does that mean? So when I talk to attorneys who do a lot of business all the time. And one of the things they always say is they say that I always try to reach out to people that I know have work or will have work. I help them through good times and bad times, whatever. And sometimes the general counsel may lose their job and they may need someone else that can help them, or that all sorts of things can happen. But your goal as an attorney, regardless of the status of your career, is to find outside companies and people who can give you work. You need to get close to them. If you don't know how to do it, you need to watch what other people do. So these are things you can get close to people with lots of business in your own firm. If you do get close to them, you should get all the frickin' work you can from them and do everything you possibly can. And then there's always going to be outside companies and people who can give you work. So you need the same thing. You need to try to get close to those people as early as possible in your career. The other thing is you need to understand market where there's a lot of work. But regardless of, say you're in real estate, there's always going to be boom markets. There's always no market and B market, regardless of the state of the economy. So what does that mean? So that means that you can go, for example, right now, real estate's very slow in Los Angeles, New York, but it's very active in Charlotte. In North Carolina, there's a ton of work. In other recessions, it's been very busy in Austin, Texas, like a couple of years ago. And then prior to that, it was very busy in South Florida. So there's always where you need the bar window. You can't just move to South Florida to practice law, but because it's one of the states, so you take the bar. But the point is that there's always going to be markets where there's a lot of work. So if I was an attorney looking for a job in real estate right now, I would go on BCG or whatever, Indeed, Law Crossing, then just look and see where all the real estate jobs are. And there's always going to be pockets of work in different places. I've seen one of my first placements was attorneys moving from a small firm in Boise, Idaho, one of my first real estate placements several years after. But there's just a big demand in Los Angeles. There's always going to be markets where there's not enough attorneys for real estate law and more demand. But what you would need to do with any practice area you're in, every practice area, by the way, there's going to be certain parts of the country that are busier than others. An example would be the corporate crisis when all the people were losing their jobs. What happened then is, it's interesting, all the activity of all the jobs and things there was a ton of jobs in Texas because they were insulated from the economic downturn by all this activity going on in oil and gas. The same thing happened in North Dakota. There was this incredible boom for trust and estates attorneys and all this stuff. And anybody could get a job there. So it just literally was that good. So it just, anybody much, if you're an attorney and had good experience. But the point is that you just always need to look for markets that are good. There's always going to be, especially real estate, there's always going to be markets that are good for your practice area. It's just how it is. There's going to be, real estate might be hot in Detroit right now. Detroit was like a freaking nightmare and now there's all this activity and I'm getting bidding wars for attorneys, but it all depends on the practice area that you want to be in, whatever it is. And there's always going to be markets. But if you are young, you need to get very close to attorneys with lots of business because they can protect you and they will always figure out how to get work. That's what they do. There are people that literally your job as an attorney is to get work. You need to figure out how to get your work from your partners you're working with. But you also need to figure out how to get work from outside people. That's your job. Your job as an attorney is nothing more than to get work. And then you do the work, but you need to bring in the work. And that's what makes people successful, having access to work. So you can get it outside or you can get it You can find markets where there are a lot of work. And by the way, there's always markets where there's a lot of work. So one thing that happens in a lot of economic downturns is people are really trying to look for corporate jobs. And they're like, there's no corporate job. What do I do? You can always potentially get positions at corporate if you look at jobs outside of major cities, because there are places that are insulated for whatever reason. They might have a little ecosystem, and there might be, I don't know, in Reno, Nevada, there might be casinos and different agricultural companies from, I don't know, but there could be corporate jobs there. So you just need to understand the market. And it's always helpful when you do that. Let's see. Sorry, give me a second to answer this question. Okay, so the person says, and this is another thing that you don't really need to worry about. Alex experienced a setback in a high-profile case that significantly impacted my professional standing within the legal community. How can I bounce back from such setbacks and rebuild my career momentum? Okay, so this is a great question. What do? You just stop worrying about it. But that's why stop worrying about it and take control of your career. So fine, you did something wrong. So you did something wrong. You lost the case, lost the case, got trouble with the law. I don't know, with the law. I'm just making things up. With the law, these are not things that you did or withdraw from them, making things up. But these are all things that lost the case, you're a horrible, bad in trouble law, you're a drug. I'm just making stupid stuff up. But whatever, case through something are within the data. So what do you do? So the dumbest, stupidest thing you can do, you may be, I don't know who you are, but you may be through a very famous attorney was, and everyone knew that you did something wrong or you made a mistake. So why are you still trying to work with people that don't like you? Or people where they're going to hold you back, or they're going to always have bad opinions of you? I saw this one guy. It's interesting. I don't want to get sued, so I'm going to be very careful here with what I say. But there was this very well-known attorney in Los Angeles named Kirsten. He had a firm called O'Donnell and Schaefer, and this firm had a very good reputation. They had their own courtroom, trial lawyers and all this stuff, and very good attorneys. They went there and partners. And then he did something stupid, like he asked people to make donations to politicians. Basically, there was a limit in how much. Again, I don't want to get sued, so just keep in mind that I'm remembering this briefly. But he did something like, I don't know. The accusation was that he was having people give money on his behalf, even though he had maxed out his campaign contributions. Just something stupid that I don't think sounded very bad. But anyway, I guess that was a felony, giving people money to give to politicians even though you were the one giving it, you're already giving, I don't know, something, but it was a felony, and they came after him with felony, trying to convict him of a felony. And I think he'd heard Jones Day and they were fighting. And the whole issue was it was convicted of a felony, and then he would lose his law license. So he was fighting, and it was all in the papers and everything. And then eventually they got the state or the government agreed to a what do you call it, misdemeanor to the felony, and they fought about this for years, and he finally got that. So then he got a job, and he decided to go to work, or the job he got was with a mid-sized LA-based firm, I think it's Greenberg Lusker, as of counsel or something. So here's this illustrious attorney, made some stupid mistake that, again, not like he was hurting people, it didn't sound, but anyway, made a stupid mistake, was all over the news. And suddenly he decides to go back and try to be of counsel with this mid-sized LA-based firm after being at the heights of the legal crush. And then so why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because if I just hit him, I probably would have not gone back to a law firm as of counsel when I was this big famous attorney. I think I probably would have just gone back and started my own law firm and sued people, gone into mass torts or something, or done something where it doesn't matter. Like, why would I keep trying to be a defense attorney and, and having been held back and having this role as a counsel and just not well known? And I would try to stand up for myself and go and just fight and fight in a way that doesn't matter what happened. Why would you want to be part of the defense bar or whatever if you were this horrible stain in your record or whatever? I would rather go in and be like, if I was, he'd be a plaintiff's attorney, just light the world on fire and just, take all my skills of being a defense attorney. And I just sue people, just be angry and whatever. That's what I would do. And so that's how you get your career momentum. I've seen all these people do stupid stuff like, again, they make a horrible error. They are busted in some prostitution, getting, I don't know, they become a drug addict. I saw one woman seen a couple women become drug addicts. I've seen one become a drunk. It was very interesting. There was one woman that I met earlier in my career, and I was actually thinking about her the other day. And she was one of my first placement, and she went to Harvard Law School, and she got a job, I believe. She worked as like a professor, got some position there working, teaching for a year after graduating law school. Very smart girl. And then I got her a job, I think, at Skadden, and she had been a former drug addict and had overcome this when she was younger, and had also been a model and all these things. But anyway, so she came and she moved to LA when she was moved to LA, and then she came to take the bar before going there. And I remember I took her out to dinner and had someone drive her and pick her up from the bars. Used to be very close to my candidates back then. But anyway, she got to a firm and started getting back into crystal meth. I mean, the product or whatever she'd been doing before, the pressure of practicing law and everything just became very hard for her, the hours. And so she started crystal meth. And then the firm, I don't know, somehow pushed her out from, or she left, or I don't know what happened. And she went down this addiction hole, and it just kept going. And so I think she wound up in Idaho. She was just a couple of years, just nothing happening. And obviously in the state she was in, there was no way she was going to be able to get a job or anything. And certainly her large law firm career had taken a real bad spin. What ended up happening when she was in her drugs and everything, she was associating with really bad people. She was literally, I think, living on the streets of Los Angeles, or the homeless, criminals, and all this horrible experience. This is a true story. And wow, she came to my office once, and she was bare feet and living on the street with this woman, and tried to get me to cash a check or something. What's the point of all this? So this woman fell to the absolute depths of, you can't make up how far this woman fell. I can't even believe it. Harvard, Skadden, and all this stuff. And then years of just horrible people, and anyway. So what's the point about this? So she now, after destroying her career for several years, took all that energy and things that she learned and became a criminal attorney, representing criminals. And she obviously got off these drugs and turned her life around. And I don't know how she did it. I'm sure she spent months, if not longer, in a rehab and halfway houses. I don't know. I don't have any contact with her. But the point is that she just went to the absolute bottom of the barrel. There's things you can't even imagine. Imagine walking around barefoot in the streets of Los Angeles doing drugs. And she was with this one woman when she came into my office that had missing teeth. It was crazy. Had some kind of seed thing growing on her leg. This is a true story. I can't even believe I'm telling this story. I don't think I've ever told it. But the point, and felt like I was close to her. I may have spent a lot of time with her. I liked her a lot as a person. But the point is that, so she became this very known, now she's in the city of California. I'm not going to say where it is to give away her identity, but she's got this firm, or she's got 5 or 6 criminal attorneys working for her. She does murder trials, this big stuff. She's very well known. She billboards. And so she turned her entire life around. And when she cleaned up, and I don't know how she got into criminal law. This is 22 years ago or whenever, when 23 or 24 years ago, when all this happened. But I guess my point is that regardless of what happens to you, you need to go into a practice area with people that will accept you. So why would you try to go into something like this Pierce O'Donnell did and keep doing the same thing and constantly have a cloud over your head and be reminded of your failure? Why would you do that? Why would you do something like that? And why would you, if you were this woman that became a drug addict and couple of years smoking crystal meth on the streets of LA, and God knows what else, prostitution, who knows? Why would you try to go back into a large law firm after all that and have this cloud hanging over your head? Why wouldn't you go and learn from your lesson? But that's the point. Things happen that are bad to all attorneys. I can tell you countless stories of people that had these careers and things happen to them, and when they had felt so far, and then they came back. I've seen so many people do that. I had one guy that worked for me. He was a very well known. I'll say his name. His name was Brian Siegel. He worked for me for over 20 years. And when he was younger, he wrote these Siegel law outlines, which used to be, they were there in my law school when I was practicing. And when I was a law student, you could buy them. And then in addition to that, he also was teaching his bar classes for the Baby Bar and everything in LA, and had a big business doing that. And then he got caught taking the bar exam for someone to help them. I guess they paid him or something. And they threatened, he was charged with pending to take away his license. And so he resigned from the bar, and he basically felt like he lost, didn't know what he was going to do. And he actually felt very badly, and he became an Orthodox Jew. I think he was just a normal Jew, but Orthodox means he was wearing a kippah, praying 3 times a day with other people, and completely different life. But in addition to that, he didn't know what to do, became a legal recruiter, and was very successful. He worked on his own for years, and then he came to work for me and worked for me for 20 years and had a very good career. He just did something different, where he didn't try to go back into the legal community, working as a paralegal, and he just did something different. My point to you is that whatever happens negative to you, or even if you lost your bar license or whatever, you need to go into something where you'll be welcome, as opposed to the opposite. Why would you want to do something where you're continually reminded of your faults? You can move states, you can do all sorts of things to bounce back, but you don't want to be around people that are going to constantly remind you of. You need to pick yourself up and figure it out. And again, I'm giving you a very long answer to this question. The reason I'm doing so is because I've seen this happen so many times. I'm telling you that you can overcome it. It's very easy. I'll tell you one other story. One of my first placements was this guy that used to be advertised. This was almost before the internet. You put advertisements in legal publications and things. If I put this out, advertisement in the legal publication, I don't know why I said it. I don't even know. I was starting out as a recruiter. I really hadn't even for me placement show. But I decided to put this advertisement in this publication. And in the publication, I said, hey, I specialize in helping older attorneys transition, find jobs in new law firms without business or something. I don't know why I said it. It's almost like it came from God or something. Literally, there was no reason for me to say that. But all of a sudden, like, all these attorneys were seeking me out. And one of the first attorneys that came to me, I was living in Pasadena, California, and this guy called me. He wanted to meet, and he told me that he'd been head of the practice group of corporate or something at this big law firm, or corporate securities, this big law firm, Buchalter, which in the 1980s was this incredible firm, and I don't know how long he did. And then I met him, and I met him in a restaurant in Pasadena. He came in and told me how he used to have a big house and all this stuff. And then he was like biting his lip, so it was bleeding, and he hadn't been employed in 3 or 4 years, and had been unemployed, and he lost everything. And what had happened is he'd been a partner at this law firm, and then he'd become a commissioner at the SEC, which I guess is a big deal. And then he was carrying out lives with his wife and kids in Los Angeles. And then he was also living in Washington, D.C. as a commissioner. Everything was going well. I don't know. I heard some rumors, I don't know if it's true or not, that he was a cocaine addict or something. Again, I don't want to get sued because I'm not saying this person's name or anything, but that's what I heard. Maybe, I don't know, he told me, but something came to my attention somehow. And so anyways, he met me, and he's biting his lip, nervous, he was like shaking. And obviously was shaking was from the stress. It wasn't nothing wrong with it. And anyways, and so what happened is it came out when he was working as a commissioner that he was actually married. He married some other woman in Washington, D.C., married her while he was married to his wife in Los Angeles. And 25 years ago, I don't know how that would be considered now, but 25 years ago, that was pretty amazing. And when, of course, all these news stories jumped out, he lost his job and became an absolute pariah, meaning no one would have anything to do with his guy. It's just done. Both his wives, of course, divorced him. He had to give away all his money to, I don't know, his wife. I don't know what happened. And it was just a very bad situation for him. And because of that, he'd been unemployed for 4 years, but he read this advertisement. And I said, hey, I hope for attorneys. Again, it must have been planned by God or something. I don't know why I said it, because at that point, I didn't really have to. It was crazy. Why would I say that? But I said it. So he found me, and I told him I'd do what I could. And so I used to subscribe to all these legal publications. And this is before people were putting stuff online. That's how long I would do this. And so I would read them, sure I was going on. And then one day I read, it was in 2000 or whenever, I read this article where this law firm was saying, never in my entire 30-year career have I seen so much securities work coming across my desk. It's more than any man or even small firm can handle. It's an avalanche of work. We don't know what to do, something like that. And the law firm was in Silicon Valley. And so I was like, yeah, send this guy there. And sure enough, they were like, hell yeah. They saw his resume because he'd been a partner and a commissioner. They brought him up and hired him right away. And anyway, and then the law firm had never had anybody from a recruiter. They hired him and he started, did we pay you? What did we do? And they had no idea. And anyway, so I got him this job. And then that particular law firm, then within a year, because they had so much work, merged into a giant law firm. I don't know what the law firm was, but DLA Piper, something like that. It wasn't DLA Piper, but it was a big firm. I don't remember the name of it, but it was a major international law firm. So all of a sudden, this guy is a partner again in a major U.S. law firm, just from the luck of finding this recruiter from the stroke and who knows where wrote this stuff in this ad. And he became a partner. And so his whole career turned around and he bounced back. And I don't looking back. Or so anybody can bounce back from any of this stuff. Keep telling them stories. I had another guy that went to he was a head of a practice group of a major U.S. law firm. And they asked him to come in and help someone with a pitch in another city. So he flew from Chicago to, I don't know where it was, Minneapolis or something. And he had a drinking problem. So he drank on the plane, and he showed up at a meeting in this firm to help this person pitch a client, and was just like incredibly drunk, like very unprofessional, spot my creditors. They fired him, just boom, like his career just stopped. So they fired him. So he came to me and asked me to help find him a job. And I did. I was able to get him into a smaller firm in their corporate practice area. And he went there and he worked there for 2 or 3 years doing the work. And he'd gotten sober by that time and spent a year getting sober. And then that firm moved into a larger firm. All this stuff is over, you can overcome it all. But I've given a very long answer to this question, but it's a very important question because a lot of people, they think their careers are over when these horrible things happen to them. And you can always overcome that, is my point. It's always fixable. And so you can always fix it. No matter what happens to you or what stage in your career, you can fix it. So that's a very long answer to your question, but I wanted to give you a long answer because I've helped so many people in your position, and I just know that there's always hope, no matter how bad things are. You can always overcome them. And I could tell stories all day about this. Okay, someone who's just starting out in the legal field, I'm curious how I can anticipate and adapt to the inevitable changes in practice areas of limited firms. How can I future-proof my career and ensure I'm not less valuable in certain areas become less lucrative? So it's not that practice areas become less lucrative. It's just that opportunities dry up. So there's just less work. So that's what happens. There's less work when you go into that. So you need to make choices about where you're working and how you're working. So this is really my piece of advice to everyone to that particular question you asked from how you can anticipate and adapt and so forth. So the best way to do that is to get close to partners with a lot of work. So you need to do that. This is later in your career, but when you're young, or you're starting out, you need to do your best to get close to associate partners with a lot of business. The other thing I would recommend too, everyone has, and this is actually a very important point. to make. So everyone has interest and strength. So, so like, I'll just tell you an example. My daughter. So my oldest daughter is like taking all these APs, and for whatever reason, she's interested in, or she's interested in, but she's interested in things that don't have anything to do with English and history, but she's taking 5 in her AP history, got 5 in English, got 750 or whatever on the SVTs in English. I don't know what these, but the plan is very good, but then maybe doing something else, I don't know, but I'm just giving a point. So a lot of times people have interest in one field that they're very strong in one field. So you should go into a practice area where you should choose a practice area that you have a lot better. That you have a passion, but you don't have a passion for something. You need to feel like you could talk about it. You're excited about it. You love it. You would get up early in the morning to do it. You would everything about that practice area just makes you excited. And that's what you need to do. You need to go into something like that, because if you do, then you're likely to always be employed, because people will pick up on your passion. Clients will pick up on your passion. The people you work with will pick up on your passion. You can do, what do? You can write articles about it, or you can give talks about it. You can read about it in your free time, or you can just all sorts of stuff. This is what people do when they're enthusiastic about something. So you need to do something that you feel very excited about, because if you do, it's going to come across to firms you talk to. It's going to come across to you're looking for a job. It's going to come across when you're in a job. It's going to make it very hard for you to let go, and people are going to pick up on that. This is a good question here. Thank you for this question, by the way. There's a lot to it. This is a good question. And by the way, this is the last question I have. If anybody has any other questions, I'll let you know. Another excellent service, a few minutes here and there. Yeah, and I'm glad that people are interested in this. It's just not normal. It's not a normal type webinar. This is meant to be inspirational, which I like to do those kind of webinars. Okay, any overview comments on the energy law practice area, e.g. regulatory work to find pooks and never seen an oil and gas transaction for renewable energy products and trying left. Okay, so I'm a recruiter, and I can tell you that I've been, again, doing this for decades. I'm always very worried about the energy law practice area. I think that there are pockets of activity, Colorado and oil and gas, and different areas of the country, Texas from time to time. But I'm worried about this practice area. I do believe it is a boom and bust type practice area. I see a lot of attorneys not being able to hold on to jobs in this practice area. In terms of opportunities, I've seen them, but there's just the demand for this people in this practice area just isn't as strong as a lot of the normal practice areas. It's an example of a niche practice area that can sometimes be very difficult to stay employed in. It's just what it is. Sometimes there's like these practice areas that are very sexy that people want to go into. Data privacy, different types of, it used to be environmental. Now it's, this practice area. I worry a lot of times about these very specific practice areas in terms of if you're working for others, like meaning if you're working for other people, these can be very difficult practice areas. But if you're able to work in this practice area and figure out how to get clients and bring clients in, then that's actually an excellent practice area. So if you can stay employed in oil and gas or energy, typically people will do one or the other. They will do either energy, or they will do oil and gas, or they will do renewables. So it can be, I think it's a very risky practice area. I think that there's a lot of attorneys that do it that are able to bring in business, but it's very difficult for this practice area, for the most part, to support a lot of sport associates. It's just a hard practice area. And I'm just saying this from the standpoint of being a recruiter and what I see, and I see far fewer placements and other activity in that practice area than a lot of others. Okay, the next question is, would you have any overview comments on environmental land use law practice, often combined parallel to real estate law practice? I concentrate my legal career in my areas and thinking about going solo in one of our areas. Yeah, so that's a good question. And yes, land use is a very good practice area. And I think that the thing about land use is that it's very closely related to real estate. And so real estate there's always something going on in real estate, whether or not it's in the regardless. And there's always something going on in land use. There's always different things being built and dug up and things. And so there's always land use work. There's a lot more. Being a land use attorney is much more, it's a better practice area to be in than environmental is a very difficult practice area. Environmental law will have boom and bust depending on literally like the presidential administration. If you're in Democratic, you're going to have more, less work than more work. Probably, I don't know, but you're going to have more or less work depending on whether it's a Republican administration or a Democratic administration. So obviously, the Republican administration, you'll have more, and less when it's the Democrat, and depending on that. So that can be a little bit dangerous, but land use is a very good practice area. I place attorneys doing land use all the time, and there's jobs all the time for land use attorneys. So it can be a very good practice area. In terms of going solo in one of those areas, I would recommend being very careful. If I was thinking about going solo in one of those areas, those are not necessarily the best practice areas to go in. If you're doing land use also, you can do land use for municipalities, you can do it from, but if you want to do land use, the people that hire land use attorneys are going to want to use law firms. You're not going to want to use an individual. People that do oil and gas transactions are going to want to use a law firm, not individuals. These are, anytime you're working in a practice area where you're representing governments or oil companies or things like that, they're not going to hire a freaking, man, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude, but they're not going to be hiring solo practitioners. Would you hire a solo practitioner if you were a large company or a municipality or state energy company? No, they wouldn't. So you need to be very careful. Anybody that wants to go solo, you need to make sure that you understand that there's two types of attorneys. There's attorneys that do corporate company facing work, meaning they're representing companies, and there's attorneys that do individuals. So if you want to represent companies, you're going to need to have, in the most case, people behind you. You're going to need to have a team, because that's what they expect. And then not only that, but most companies are going to expect a brand, but they want a brand firm. They're going to pay more for Oric Cyclical, which is a great firm. They pay more for Oric than they're going to pay for a smaller firm. And Oric is a big brand name, and they want that, and it looks good to their clients and the people that the company is, coming up against. Then a solo practitioner. If you hire a solo practitioner, they'll lie. They lie, but they'll look stupid. So you have to understand, you have to choose your practice areas based on the type of, you choose your practice areas based on who you're going to represent. So you want to represent individuals, they don't know the difference between you and a law firm. They're fine. They just know you're a lawyer. You want to represent companies, you're going to need to, sometimes companies will hire patent attorneys that they know to write patents, because it's just an intellectual skill, and it doesn't matter what the law firm is to going patent and trademark office. But it's other practice areas you just need to be very careful about, because no one is going to want to have an individual represent them in a different, you wouldn't either. Let me see. Okay, so let's see this question. I'm glad everyone's getting so much out of these webinars. Thank you for, these are very helpful. Let's see. Thank you for another informative transfer webinar. It's really priceless. The question is, thank you. It said, so many of these practices are fluid and risky. Plan-wise, does a student or new attorney hedge their bets? Is joining a firm with a tactical practice area is a good edge. So let's see this. Personal injury seems to be a solid practice area. Let's see what this. Now this is fun. This may be a website that I'm not familiar with. If it is, I'm pretty excited right now. These are different practices. I see them. That's fun. Let's work on in there. Federal international security brands. I'm not sure what this question is. Let's see here, but these are a bunch of practice areas, which I like seeing. Federal practice with careers. I was hearing about this. Okay, I guess it's a law firm. Okay, I guess this doesn't sound like a law firm, but okay. So this firm has diverse practice areas. Is what you're saying. I guess that's interesting. They do all these different things. I'm not sure how that's possible. Just how many people they have. No, attorneys. Okay, it looks like they have quite a few people there. So your question is that is it possible as PI's revenue generates, but still take on other types of cases? What happens so this firm looks like they have a bunch of different practice areas, but the problem with, you can't joining a firm with different practice areas, just because they do different venues doesn't necessarily mean it's a tactical hedge. Most law firms will hire people to be not generalists. They want people that are concentrating in one practice area. So a lot of times, if that practice area slows down, It's not like they're going to throw you, like if you're doing corporate, they're going to throw you into litigation. In most cases, they will just basically say, I don't have a job for you, because clients hire specialists. They don't hire generalists unless you're like in a, small market. Let me see where these guys are. So they're in Washington, DC. Yeah. So a client's not going to hire someone they hire people that have specific skills. They want you to be one type of attorney, because that means that if you're committed to that practice area and you're doing it all the time, you're going to see things that a generalist wouldn't. So any company that's hiring an attorney is going to want to hire people that are specialists in a practice area. So you are now protected, I guess is my answer to you, by going to a firm that where you would be has different practice areas. The only way you're protected basically is by choosing a practice area where you feel like you're going to do well and where there's going to be long-term opportunities. So what is that? You say personal injury seems like a solid practice area. Yes. And can you take other types of cases? Yes. But typically whatever practice area you go into, you want to make sure you commit to it. Now I'll tell everyone something about personal injury on this call or webinar that's very interesting. Personal injury, what personal injury attorneys all say to me is they say that 90 to 95% of the game is marketing and bringing in personal injury attorneys, like personal injury personal injury cases. Like most of them settle. There's formulas and things that they know how much an insurance company will pay for different things. So that's just something to keep in mind about personal injury. But yes, that's a very solid practice area. And if you understand marketing, it's also a very good practice area. But different, you should do, I guess my final piece of advice is for a practice area is you need to do whenever you can to find something that you like and you're passionate for. And if you do that, you're going to do better. And then this person says, thank you for the last thing is thank you for the answer on energy. Yeah. So I would just be very careful again about energy. Anytime, this is a final piece of advice to everyone, because let's see our last question. Anytime you're thinking about going into a practice area, regardless of what it is, the smartest thing you can do is to review the jobs and see how many jobs there are. And does it look safe? So does that look like a safe practice area? Look up, what do I think about personal injury? What are the jobs out there? Look up all these practice areas and try to understand what seems strongest. And then once you do that, you're going to have, and also which ones look interesting to you. If I remember when I was in college, I used to look at these books talking about the classes are, and certain classes look more interesting to me than others. And some of them I really want to take. So it should be like that when you're looking at jobs in different law firms and which jobs appeal to you, what kind of jobs get you excited. And that's really the most important thing. So thank you everyone for being on this webinar. I'm not sure what the topic will be next week, but some kind of do a resume review. But thank you. I think this information for everybody is extremely helpful. It can help you change your career and the direction of your life if you understand practice areas and what you're choosing and the different size markets you work in and everything as well. So thanks everyone for being here, and thanks.